Hello and welcome to the programme. A last chance for Iran, that's how Western diplomats have billed today's talks with Tehran in Geneva. 6 world powers are meeting in Switzerland in a last-ditch attempt to stop Iran enriching uranium before they push for tighter sanctions in the United Nations. But Iran says it would prefer not to talk about its nuclear program, which is the whole point of going to Geneva for the Western powers. The recent discovery of a secret enrichment facility at Qom hasn't helped the atmosphere, and the Iranian president says his country will emerge undamaged from today's meeting. But tougher measures against Iran would once again depend on Russia and China, both permanent members of the UN Security Council. Has the Qom affair hardened their hearts against Iran? That's one of the questions we'll put to Ardavan Amir Aslani, international lawyer, geopolitical commentator, and author of Iran, The Return of Persia. Good morning.
Good morning, Armin.
Ardavan, first of all, Iran seems to be offering the West a little something, saying that a third party could enrich uranium. Is this a viable proposition, or is it just a phony statement?
The constant position of the Iranian government has always been that the idea of local enrichment in Iran is never up for negotiation. This means that the option that apparently is prevailing out there, whereby enrichment will occur in a third party, is a theoretical venue. It's not going to happen. The Iranians have been adamant in relation to their sovereign right to enrich uranium on their national soil. So that's not going to be an issue. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even convinced that the Europeans and the Americans and the members of the Security Council are keen in concentrating on this matter. Iran has today, as you well know, within the Natanz facility, more than 8,000 centrifuges turning round the clock. The discovery of the Qom facility, capable of housing 3,000 additional centrifuges, makes it virtually impossible to go back in time to the early 2000s, asking Iran to convey third-party enrichment elsewhere. It's not going to happen.
So what about the Western approach then? I mean, why this rhetoric of we've got to stop enrichment when the reality, as you say, is that it's not an option?
As a matter of fact, entrance into this negotiation by the Americans is different from what has been their constant policy for the last decade. Up until a year ago, the American position was, we are not going to embark upon any dialogue with the Iranians unless the Iranians stop enrichment. The doctrine of zero enrichment is no longer on the agenda, and they are entering these negotiations without any preconditions. So the issue today is that you have to accept the facts on the land, and the facts on the land is Iran has become a country that controls its nuclear capacity, locally enriches uranium, and what makes everybody freaking out is the missile issue, which enables Iran, in the event it has militarized the missile, to be able to transport a nuclear weapon abroad.
Do you sense there's a gap between American rhetoric, though, despite the change from George W. Bush? They're still talking about the dangers posed by Iran, but now you think, in actual fact, they've diplomatically scaled down their ambitions, and they're now looking simply at containment, at more inspections by the UN's nuclear watchdog.
That's exactly it. You've correctly understood the matter. As the Americans have abandoned the zero enrichment option, the only thing that is remaining out there is preventing Iran from openly becoming a military nuclear power, which implies asking Iran not to effectuate a local national nuclear explosion underground. If that doesn't happen, at least they can tell the world, look, we've stopped the Iranian military adventurism, and they have not become a military nuclear power, so proliferation is something that may not happen. That's what they're trying to achieve today. It's going to be a grand bargain discussion. The Iranians are going to go into those negotiations saying, look, the nuclear side is only an ancillary, accessory subject matter to what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Iranian assets frozen in America. We're going to talk about Iranian issues internationally. We're going to talk about the Iranian Airbus that you've shot down 20 years ago. And we want to basically embark upon a grand bargain whereby Iran will be able to grab as much as it can from the Security Council members plus Germany for enabling it to come back into the international community as the sovereign regional power that it has become.
Is that something that France, Germany, Britain, and the United States could accept as a starting point, that sort of grand bargain?
The reality of the matter is that even if they don't accept it, the facts and the terrain are such that Iran is a regional power. You look into Iraq, there is no possible solution in Iraq without Iranian involvement. You go into Afghanistan with what's happening over there, with the Italian threat that they're going to leave the coalition over there, it makes Iran's involvement in these countries inevitable. Not even to mention the Palestinian issue, whereby Iran, through Hamas, through Hezbollah, through its alliance with Syria, has basically kidnapped the Palestinian cause. So Iran is a regional power, and it has to be reckoned with as such. And what Iran is trying to convey in these negotiations and their missile war games is basically to tell the world, look, I am here to stay. I'm a regional power, and you have to deal with me and respect me as such.
It seems, Ardavan, like a no-win situation for the Western powers. Either they don't accept the facts on the ground as you lay them out, or they do, but then they legitimize a government which they say has rigged the elections, and that simply strengthens Ahmadinejad and Ali Khamenei.
I think that we have to distinguish between the Iranian nuclear issue and local Iranian politics. No matter who would be elected in Iran, even Mousavi, the nuclear issue would continue as such. Mousavi's position in relation to Iran's rights to nuclear energy were the same as those defended by Ahmadinejad. What would have been different would have been the rhetoric, the way they would have embarked upon negotiations.
But the developing the centrifuges, that wouldn't have changed at all.
Not at all. Let us not forget that when Monsieur de Villepin headed the three-member delegation in 2002-2004 going to Iran, the Iranians at that time asked the power to enable them to have 40 centrifuges only for scientific laboratory purposes. They said no. Today we're talking about more than 8,000 and 3,000 more coming up.
Okay. On Iran's global role, Ardavan, you've mentioned in the past Russia's and China's commercial involvement. How's that playing now? Has the Qom affair changed anything for them in terms of possible sanctions?
It has changed a lot of things. First of all, the military option has become even more difficult because prior to that, we only had the Natanz facility. Now, in addition to the Natanz, you've got the Qom facility. So, you're not talking about a single target to go after. You're talking about a number of targets. And furthermore, sanctions, you need the unanimous support of all Security Council members. China and Russia have repeatedly said that they're not going to enable and authorize America to embark upon a new world adventurism without their prior consent. Today, Iran supplies 10% of China's oil needs. One of the big issues that sanctions were supposed to impose upon Iran was the prohibiting Iran from importing refined oil. That's no longer on the agenda because, as we all know, last week the Chinese signed an agreement with the Iranians providing them with this direly needed refined oil. So out there, as far as sanctions are concerned, the options are very limited.
One of the options, though, is for the West to try to push the Saudis to get involved. Can you just briefly tell us about that?
Money diplomacy has come back. The Saudis are negotiating with the Russians today for a $2 billion, maybe up to $7 billion contract. That was what was said by the Russians yesterday in relation to the acquisition by the Saudis of 5 battalions of S-400, which are the most modern anti-aviation missile defense systems, so as to prevent the Russians from complying with the terms of their agreement for the supply of a similar equipment to the Iranians. So the Western world is trying to do whatever it can, bringing the Saudi money, bringing in sanctions, try to control and contain Iran.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your
analysis.
analysis.
Thank you, Armin, for having me.
Ardavan Amir Aslani, that's the end of this top story. Thanks for watching.